Welcome. We're back, PACA II, and tonight we've got a real treat for you with Vin Lananna, who's going to address some of the more pressing topics of the world of track and field for us. But before we get too started or started too far in tonight, I want to acknowledge Coach Clyde Hart, who passed away this week. And Clyde was one of the veterans of our show at different times, and I had called him few months ago to see if he would join us, and that's the first time I knew that he was sick. And so he, was fighting till the end on everything. And again, thank him for everything and all of the wisdom that he shared. This whole PACA concept started with podium education and podium coaching. And of course, I think it goes without saying that Clyde was able to crack the code and, had Olympic athletes, world record holders, and male and female, and did an excellent job, Baylor and at Team USA. So, Clyde, I hope you're watching, and thank you so much for everything. But tonight, shifting gears here a little bit, we're in the cross country season, and Coach Lananna has graciously adjusted his schedule to be with us tonight, and I greatly appreciate that because he has a team, both men's and women's team. They're highly ranked in NC2A cross country. They won the conference on the men's side last week and are getting ready now for regional. So we're going to talk a little cross country. But we've also had a outreach from one of our audience members about having a head coach on who's been at a variety of opportunities and has hired a lot of different assistant coaches as to what is a head coach looking for. If you're a young coach or an assistant, lifetime assistant coach and want to move up, what is a head coach looking for? And how can you help your resume or just get the word out? And so that's going to be our other topic that we're going to talk about tonight. So we've got both ways. And again, Vin, thank you so much for adjusting your schedule because I know it was act of love for you to get on here tonight. So I do appreciate that. For those of you that don't know, which are very few, I'm sure, but I think Vin's been at six different schools as I count it, starting with, is it CW Post, where you went to school there, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then became the head coach, and then worked his way through with Dartmouth, with Stanford, Oberlin, uh, Oregon, and now is at Virginia. At Dartmouth, though, at cross country team, since we're into cross country season, his cross country team finished twice in the top silver medalist at the NC2A level. And so he definitely knows what he's talking about cross country wise. But also, then on track and field, those of you that follow, like I say, in Oregon and Stanford, and now Virginia know that his distance runners and middle distance runners have been throughout on NC2A and Team USA. And of course, administratively, he served as the USATF president, was a head Olympic coach for us in 2016, and as I remember, was on the staff with us in Athens. So we went through life at Crete and life in Athens together. So Vin, again, welcome and thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, so thanks, Sue. Thanks for inviting me. Of course, this is a anything I would do that could solidify and cement Brooks Johnson's legacy as the founder of this podium coaches. Brooks, as all of you know, I'm not saying anything that people don't already know. He was instrumental in just about everything I did, and uh, uh, there are times now when I feel like dialing that phone call and just hearing from Brooks. And so I'm happy to be on the call here today, and hopefully I can be helpful. I appreciate those of you who are on the call, and I think the best way to approach this, Sue, is to go back during our 2004 Athens days, where you successfully coached the team, you and George, as the men's and women's head coaches. And we were kind of cleaning up all the stuff and coordinating all the administrative stuff as you guys were doing all the coaching. So I appreciate being on the call here today, and I'm happy to try to maybe turn this into a Q&A, since I'm not, I don't know what the topics that you guys would like to talk about. It would be great if people would turn on their cameras so I know who I'm talking to. That would be awesome. It's always a little difficult to talk to a blank screen. So
Right.
if you guys could do that, that'd be awesome. And then as you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, or happy to take a crack at it. But mostly, what I'll do is facilitate. And maybe I think the best thing for me to do is talk a little bit about overall distance running and directing a program. So as you've shared with me, many of the people on the call would like to know how to boost resume and how to be a successful assistant coach who aspires to be a head coach.
Right.
So let me let me address both of those, but then I'm going to kind of kick it over to you, Sue, to
Okay.
monitor what the best way to facilitate this.
Sounds great.
Let me just say that for me, I'm a scientific based coach, and I really don't do a lot of the ad lib stuff. I'm really someone who bases everything we do based on what is what is scientifically proven, and also to be sure that I'm in front of what's cutting edge. So, um, so I'm happy to kind of share what that really means. But to start out, what we do is we work on four macro cycles. We work on four 13-week cycles, 52 weeks in a year. We break those macro cycles into two mini cycles of 6 weeks, and then we break those 6 weeks into three 2-week cycles, which mostly everybody knows what that is. Um, but there's a physical adaptation that takes place after 6 weeks, and we try to build on that. And where we get that information is we do a lot of scientific testing. We do VO2 max testing on the treadmill, and we try to figure out what the actual maximum heart rate is. And we base a lot of our training on that, but we mostly try to pay attention to what's the um, lactic acid turning point. And that's kind of where we do the majority of our training. And we work off of really simple energy systems. We work off of a strong aerobic system. We work off of a threshold system where you have to know the lactic, you have to know your turning point in order to do that. And then, and then we work on your speed endurance, which is your interval work. And we are very athletically driven. So those of you who coach distance runners know that they're the most um, in no disrespect to those who are distance runners here, but probably the least athletic. Uh, and what we try to do is get them to be better athletes. So we work pretty hard on real strength and speed, and we try to develop their speed because that's, and Brooks, there are many conversations. I'll leave out his vernacular, but uh, he certainly would talk to me about a critical zone in the last 15% of the race. So we watch every Olympic Games or any World Championships. It all comes down to, can you finish? Can you close? Can you lead? Can you hang on? And that's how I coach. So I'm going to stop at this point and entertain questions or things that you'd like to know more about in each of those areas. So macro cycles, mini cycles, microcycles, those three cycles, and the four energy systems that we use are aerobic fitness, threshold work, speed endurance intervals, and speed, weight program, drills, etc. So those are the things that I can address, and I'm happy to speak to anything specific that you'd like to hear about.
Well, I'll start off here until we get some hands going. What do you have any difference between the way you coach the men's team and the women's team as far as all of these criteria?
No, I mean, basically, we look at the athlete and we don't look at gender. Uh, Obviously, there are adjustments made in terms of pace and in terms of the quantity that we do. But for the most part, the only thing that's different on in cross country is the women are running at 6K and the men are running at 10K. So
Mhm.
we're a little more focused on aerobic fitness for the men, and a little more focused on tempo and threshold for the women. But during the track season, Sue,
Yeah.
uh, we train exactly the same.
Okay, great. When you came into Virginia, they were I don't think on the women's side they had much of a tradition, and on the men's side, I think it was a little bit kind of a plateau. How or what did you do to get that culture going again, or to get them back into a top-notch cross-country squad?
Yeah, well, culture is the right word, and everywhere I've been, uh, I've been at good institutions and really successful at the national level with men and women. And the way we've done it is creating a culture of winning and a belief in what the system is. And what I tried to do is put the kids in the best position for them to be confident in what they're doing, understanding. I am ultimately a teacher, and teaching is my thing. And I like the kids to know what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and the specifics of why physiologically they're doing what they're doing. And I think that just perpetuates a culture of winning because they're confident in what they're doing because they understand it.
Okay, now don't be shy, you guys, because usually you've got some comments, questions, and whatever. And Bob Larson, welcome. I see you've joined us here tonight too, so that's great. Um, what as you're going into regionals now and nationals, how does your preparation adjust?
Yeah, it's a great question. And by now they've done all the work that they need to do. And it's just a matter of making sure that the athletes aren't overcooked and basically that we continue with patterns of training. Whatever we've been doing all year, we continue to do it. And I think what's different about what I do and most coaches uh, in the US do is I really believe in the patterns of training. So we do the same. People tend to compartmentalize the different training systems, and I don't do that. I we we do speed work during the summertime. We do all those four energy systems throughout the year. We might just take a different emphasis in the summertime and September and October and November, but basically they're doing the same thing. So we're in the weight room, we're doing our drills, we're doing our speed work, and we start them in the summer and we continue right through. We did them today. We did all our drill work and speed work today, and we're 10 days out from the regional meet. So all we do is change potentially the pace that we're doing or the volume that we're doing. Those are really the only two things you can adjust. And if we've done our job, then they are aerobically fit. They can handle the threshold pace. They've done all the interval work. They've done their speed work. So now it's just a matter of refining what we're doing. So that's the things we adjust.
And going back a little bit with the beginning and coming to Virginia and so on, what are some non-negotiables that you put upon yourself and or the team to have a successful culture, build that program?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to cross country is about team, and everyone needs to put their personal egos aside. And we have a very good front on the men's side. Our women's team and men's team is a little bit different. Our women's team is very pack directed. We have a lot of kids who are similar in talent and success rate. So we run as a team and as a program. Whereas on the men, we are mostly a track program. We're steeplechasers and 5,000, 10,000, and milers. But our mantra is there's no such thing as a track runner in the fall. We're all 10,000-meter runners and we can grind from 7K to 10K. And on the women, um, we basically run as a pack. And that's the way we're going to be successful, and we identify those.
Hmm. Okay, that's kind of an interesting setup with that, that everybody's a 10K runner on the men's side at least with that. So would you consider yourself innovative or more traditional?
Um, I don't know that I would characterize it as either. I think that I follow once again, it's about a scientific based approach. Uh,
Hmm.
but you do have to, in the current landscape of the NCAA, you must be innovative and you need to understand what the world of NILs and transfers and international recruiting is all about. And you need to be able to adjust, adapt, or because if you don't, you'll be left at the starting line.
Now, you mentioned NIL and so forth. Do you have a big NIL program there at Virginia?
We do not. Uh, uh, we have a phenomenal athletic director and leadership at UVA. We have a great AD. There's very few women who are athletic directors at the Power Four schools, and there's very even less women of color. And Carla Williams is top shelf. She's as good in the football locker room and getting those guys motivated as she is in the boardroom. And she's spectacular. I've been fortunate. I've had great athletic directors every place I've been, and Carla is uh, certainly one of the best whom I've ever interacted with. She's fantastic. She's creative. She wants to win, uh, and she's got the highest integrity, and she does it the right way. So I would say that for us, we don't do NILs in track. We do in football and in basketball and women's basketball. We have a good team, a good football team. We're 8-1 right now, and we went from the from the outhouse to the penthouse this year. And a lot of it has to do with what we've put into it. We've put $20.6 million into football each year, and we've invested in it. And it's up to me, Sue. I can do be pretty. You have to talk about innovation. I can do pretty well in fundraising,
Yep.
so that's what I've done. So we've been able to do some pretty creative things. For those of us, as as I see Bob Larson on here on the call here, uh, what used to be verboten was is now commonplace. We used to worry about giving a kid a ride home from practice. Now we can give them the car to drive home.
That's right. Give him the car. Very, very true. Not so good, not necessarily the best way to do it, but that is very true. Yeah, we had a whole thing on NIL and the whole show last week. And it was very interesting what is now, like you say, what's legal and what is commonplace a lot of times. You had mentioned that you work with the strength training part of your program. How does that look for distance?
Yeah, well, I think that what we do is I've hired on my staff. I'm not one who likes to parcel out whatever I'm doing. I like to have those who know me. I don't know how many people on the call really know me pretty well. I see Robert Weir showing up on the call. So I better watch what I say here about strength training.
That's right.
Um, uh, but what we do is we have a staff member who is proficient in being able to adjust what the strength and conditioning people do to the individual events. So we have a whole staff. We have a brand new weight room. We have is part of Carla's vision. We have something really great there, but in terms of you can have all the greatest equipment in the world, but if you don't create a training program which is specific to the event areas, and our sport is complicated. We've got the throwers that are traditionally going to be very clear on what they're doing in the weight room, whereas the distance runners tend to think that this is all supplemental and ancillary, and we find it. And I myself have evolved into this, and that is that the strength and conditioning program is so important to the distance runners because you can either have your stride frequency increased or your stride length increased. And in either case, if you don't do that, you will be left at the starting line again. Same as the NIL people.
Yeah, yeah. So this individual on your staff creates the strength program for your group?
Yeah, we kind of look at all of the kids and we tailor it based on when they're competing in their season, and we have a progression that we use, and we're right now in the maintenance side of it because we're getting ready for the championship season. But we work pretty, for everybody thinks that the distance runners are traditionally non-athletic and weak, and I will say I don't know how fast the men and the women will run, but they're neither bad athletes nor are they weak.
Mm.
Uh, every one of them knows how to hurdle. Every one of them, they may never run the steeplechase, but they all know how to hurdle. They all know how to move. They're flexible. And we tend to emphasize that quite a bit.
Okay, that's an interesting one
Mhm.
about the hurdling. Is that, do they steeple outdoors then? Is that the carryover or just mobility?
Some do. It's mostly hurdle mobility and hip mobility and ability to be able to negotiate going over the hurdle. But if you watch our kids, they can do the traditional speed and development drills, and hurdling is part of that. And they certainly don't necessarily start out looking that good, but by the end, they're very good, and they they use it as part of their warm up. So,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and if you watch any of the Virginia athletes as they prepare for the competition, they're doing all of the drills that we typically do 2 days a week.
Oh, okay. Great. Where does mental preparation fit in your program?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now everybody seems to parcel it out to a sports psych person. I think back, when I started coaching, the coach was the sports psych person. Uh, And I think we've honed in on what that is. We've made it more formalized. So we do use a support staff to be able to assist the kids in their mental preparation. Uh, you know, a quick story, when I was at Stanford, there was a guy by the name of Jerry Lynch, and Jerry was an old New Yorker who sold me on this whole sports psych stuff. So I had him come in, and everybody was like, "Who is this person?" As an outside sports psych person, but I brought him in for about 12 weeks, and we would meet with all the kids, and he would do a session each week, uh, and I thought it was really great. But then the men were second at the NCAA's by a point, and I fired him at the end of the year. But but in the end, he taught me a lot of good stuff. I was uh, uh, Robert Weir. Are you on the call here, or is that a make believe?
Turn your camera on, Robert, or unmute. Oh, we'll see if we can get him on.
Because he was at Stanford during the time that we had Jerry Lynch there,
Yeah.
so he could
Yeah.
validate that story.
Yeah, well, he's one of the, or what, was one of the first names that you come across pretty much in the sports science, sports psych world, Jerry. with that. So
Yep, Jerry Lynch.
yeah.
Uh, and he did great stuff. And we, obviously in every track event, well, any athletic pursuit, you'll need some kind of mental preparation. And in the distance, folks, anybody who coaches the distance runners on the call here knows that uh, they're the most neurotic and the most have the most demons, and you need to address those things. And I do find that to be incredibly important and a big part of what we do.
Okay. Yeah, no, it seems like nowadays people talk about it a lot more. I mean, I remember back when it first came in, if you were talking to a sports psych, it was like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" Or, it was like something you hid and didn't tell people about. But nowadays it's a lot more outgoing and it's not a stigma, let's say. It's more you expected to do it. So that part. Well, you mentioned as far as different parts of the country and things that we're doing. Where do you think we are developmentally in the US as far as our young US athletes compared to in distance running, especially bringing in a lot of these more established foreign athletes?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of international athletes or non-international athletes. I think the real issue is um, as it relates to age and as it relates to appropriate drug testing. And I know that's a taboo uh, topic to address, but I've never been known to shy away from taking a position on anything. So I would say that international athletes have been part of our sport. It's a global sport.
Mhm.
And I think that those of us who it's not an issue to have international athletes on your team. I think it actually helps our athletes to be able to perform at the highest level, to have competition that's more global in nature. But we just need to be where I have difficulty is when I look at an 18-year-old um, guy who's being beat out for freshman of the week in X institution, a 28 or 29-year-old. That's a very different that's a very different
Yeah.
skill set that one has from development, et cetera. So that's where I come down on that. But I think if you look at this year's NCAA, I think you'll find that there'll be a preponderance of international athletes who will dominate the top 15 positions at the NCAA.
So if you were a parent or a high school coach of a young high school phenom, let's say, or one that's maybe not the Cooper group, but that next group, how do you talk to a kid about that when they look at those results?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that question. I think that for me, uh, I tend to put my head down, and I was at Stanford during a time that was just at the cusp when it was changing. I think Bob Larson can talk about. Bob's a lot older than I am, so Bob can so Bob can so Bob can speak about what it was like uh, back in the Pac-10 uh, when it was a dominant international scene.
Yeah.
And I think it changed when I was at Stanford. And I give credit to some of the athletes who I had who just said, hey, we're not going to limit ourselves to thinking and complaining about international athletes. We're going to rise to the occasion. And I
Hmm.
think that if good coaches will do that, I mean, I can talk all day long about a 28-year-old versus a 18-year-old, but in the end of the day, the gun's going to go off and you need to be able to compete at the highest level. So what would I say to the high school athletes? I would say just that. And we're going to not lament about what isn't fair or what is fair, and we're going to basically put our heads down and train smarter, train harder, and be in the best position possible to be able to compete at the highest level.
There you go. Great. Well, let's shift tone here a bit, and because I'm not seeing any distance related questions coming up. So let's shift now as far as the other topic that we had, as far as young coaches, aspiring coaches to wanting to get into a head coach position or a head coach consideration. And let's see, because again, now you were an athletic director at Oberlin, and then you were an assistant or some type of AD at Oregon, I believe, weren't you, as far as
Yeah,
that?
I was the associate AD at Oregon, and I am currently the associate athletic director at the University of Virginia.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that. So, as you have again been at many different high level colleges and universities, and hiring coaches or hiring good coaches is definitely something that will either make or break a head coach. And so, what are some of the things that you look for when you get an opening? I think you hired somebody this summer on the Virginia staff. So, you had an opening, and what were some of the things that you looked for initially?
Yeah, well, I think that what I want to try to do is get a sense of the audience
Oh,
who
okay.
I'm speaking with, of how many coaches, maybe through a show of hands, are aspiring. Well, first of all, let me see how many are working in the college environment now. We have coaches in the
I think
college
most of them
environment.
are. If you're in a college or JC situation, yeah, I think there's only two or three high school
Okay,
that I see.
yeah. Well, in the current landscape, uh, I think the lifeblood of any college program today, if you can't recruit, you are not a good hire. You've got to be able to recruit. You have to like recruiting. You have to be able to relate to the student athletes. And you have to, in the end of the day, believe in what you're selling and be able to recruit top end athletes. And to me, that's number one. Uh, I think that I think often what happens uh, with a lot of coaches who apply for jobs is they think it's all about coaching, and it's so little of your. You have to be able to be a good coach, and you have to master your craft. Uh, and but I think what is very important is you've got to be able to recruit, know the landscape, know the high school landscape, know what the strengths and the weaknesses are of the institution of which you're aspiring to apply to. And if you're not able to articulate what are the what are the selling points, it makes it very difficult to hire a coach. You're right, Sue. I've hired many, many coaches, and I've been fortunate in that I have had very, very good coaches who I've been fortunate enough to work with who have been very successful, and I'm not easy to work with. Uh, I am demanding. Um, I am clear on what the goals are and aspirations are, and and the best hire for me is someone who can work with that and be able to excel and be able to be self-starters. I'm not one of these, and I think these are the successful coaches. The successful coaches are able to pinpoint uh, what qualities they're looking for. And if you're applying for jobs, you need to do your research and understand what the position is. You're right, Sue. I hired a jumps coach. I lost a great jumps and multi-events coaches and a coach named Mario Wilson, Mario's with Virginia for longer than I. He was there 13, 14 years, and he left in the summer to be the head coach at Lynchburg College. And it was a big it was a big job to fill because he coached a lot of different areas. So I needed to find somebody who's really good at least one or two areas.
Mhm.
But the person had to have a great personality and be able to recruit and be able to understand the importance of recruiting and be able to put the hours in that are needed.
And that is crucial, you guys, is the time commitment and the number of hours, not just to call and do the recruiting, but like you say, the research and the homework ahead of time to learn about the kid and or his or her situation, and to just research to know where what their interests are and how well it does match the school. Because if that doesn't match the school, even if they're the top recruit coming in, or doesn't match you or the head coach's objectives, it's going to be nothing but trouble. I don't care how good they are. It will be a pain in your tail forever. Bruce, you had a question. Why don't you unmute and ask it?
Yeah, Vin, going back to what you had talked about before about adaptation, and you and Coach Larson and Norm Tate have been coaching. I've been coaching about half the time you all have been coaching. And during my time from coaching collegiately through high school and whatever, I have seen a definite change in the student athlete, as far as mentality, toughness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the long periods of time that all three of you have been in, and any coach in here, how do you find yourself adapting to this? Because regardless of the fact, a 400-meter track is a 400-meter track. So the X's and O's don't change, but how do you maintain or execute the X's and O's with this different breed of athlete? When I was in school, I went to Alabama and Wayne Williams says, do this. That's what you did. There was no negotiation. Um, Now it's the hours you got to deal with. You can only do this at such and such, and you have to do. So how did you adapt, or how are you adapting to this?
Yeah, I mean, and any of the coaches on here can certainly feel free to respond. This is certainly, I'm certainly no expert in this area. I think that for me, um, I think it starts with recruiting and recruiting the kids who are coachable. I think you'll do a lot better with the coachable athletes, and that's how I start. And if I know that in advance that it's going to be constant questions that are questions just for questions. It's a difference between asking why you're doing something, because I get in front of that and every workout I explain why we're doing it and what the outcome will be. But if that is not going to be an acceptable mode of communicating, then that's probably the wrong kid. And all the places that I've been, um, I've really not had that has not really been an issue for me. Um, and uh, and typically in Virginia, uh, the kids are they're great kids and they trust, but we build the trust from the first day, from the recruiting process. I'm not trying to convince the kid to come to the University of Virginia. I'm just trying to help them figure out if we're a match. Um, and if you don't find the match, you create your own problems. So, and I think what we have, and I'm going to editorialize for a minute here, so forgive me. I think what's happened now is I feel badly for the younger coaches who are thinking that the only way to do something is that you have to have the most amount of money. You have to be able to recruit only international. you have to be able to use Scholar Book, and you have to be able to, you all know what Scholar Book is? It's it's basically a recruiting service, and uh, and thinking that's the only way you can be successful. But because the reality is that, I don't know, I can't say exactly who's on the call here, but I certainly know that from a Sue Humphrey uh, perspective and a Bob Larson perspective, you can still win doing things a traditional coaching way. And unfortunately, I've seen as the assistant coaches and the younger coaches that I'm afraid that once the more traditional coaches step out, we're going to be left with, hey, that's the only way you can recruit is go to Scholar Book and pay $25,000 to find a prospect. And I'm very sad about that because that is not that is not the only way you can be successful. And I could go through Pat Henry. I can take a look at somebody like Leroy Burrell. And Leroy Burrell is relatively young in the coaching perspective, but he's been able to figure it, he's been able to maintain that. And I'm sure I could go through Clyde Hart as a perfect example of someone who's been successful. And I probably am dating myself by talking about the good old days, but the reality is that I'm sad that we're going to leave the sport in a situation where we think that's the only way you can win, and that isn't the only way you can win. I we're going to be we'll be a podium team at the NCAA this cross country season, and those are normal, regular kids. They international, non-international doesn't matter. They're students, they're athletes. They came to Virginia because it made sense for them, and we followed a normal recruiting process, and we just worked hard and stuck to principles, stuck to physiological preparation, and the good old combining art and science to be able to get to the end result. So that's my editorial for today. I'm sorry.
Janelle, did you have your hand up? Wherever Janelle went. Let's see.
No, I just waited for the
Oh.
coaches in college.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Vic, was your hand up or were you college also?
Oh, we were just both applauding what Vin was saying. That's all
Oh,
that
okay.
was. Because he's right.
Much
That's awesome.
technology fanciness here. Matt,
Yeah.
what is your question?
Yeah, it's kind of going back to the training question on what's your process for tapering or peaking your runners for the end of cross country in terms of adjusting mileage or volume, and how many weeks out would you start that process in your experience?
Yeah, my experience, it's basically, we follow a, as I said, a scientific approach towards training, et cetera. The peaking is where the artistic side comes in, and we have to know the athletes, and it depends on each kid and your team and what you're trying to accomplish. I'll speak specifically. We just ran the conference meet a week ago, then we run the regional 14 days later, and then we won the NCAA's 8 days later. We tend to keep the volume pretty much the same. What I try to do is I change the volume of the workouts uh, so that instead of running, for the men, we're probably running in most workouts somewhere between 12 and 14K worth of work. And for the women, somewhere between 7 and 10K worth of work. So we're probably at 50% of that now in terms of volume of the workouts. But the mileage is, we have so many kids that I don't have a number of miles that the kids run. The men vary from 105 to 110 miles a week to 65. And the women, we probably max out 70 or 75 miles a week, and they probably are down, some of them are at 45 miles a week. And we tend to keep the volume about the same. We just change the tempo of which they're running. and we follow the same stuff with all of the drills, et cetera, that we do all year. We tend to stay on these patterns of training, which we start in the summer, and we continue to follow those patterns of training right through the NCAAs. That's what I do. Now, others might adjust them differently. Is that in line with what you do?
Pretty similar. I try not to change it too much. Just they seem flat if I do it too much, or at least my experience. So I agree. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Yep, yep, no problem.
Okay, great. Well, Vin, you've talked about recruiting being a mainstay. How do you learn how to recruit?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Sue, the thing I can say is when I was probably in my college days, et cetera, I was pretty introverted. Um, and I think I consider myself fairly shy. Now I've had to adapt to it, and I've had to learn how to be able to carry a conversation. And I probably you probably are chuckling at when I say I'm shy and introverted, uh, but I am, and by nature. But you kind of have to step out of your shell and be able to. Now, for me, I'm 72 years old, and I know it's hard to believe. I don't look a day over 71, but um, I have to relate to 16 and 17-year-old kids, and I have to know what 6'7" means. You guys know what 6'7" is? Yeah. So, uh, I ask them if they want to run this workout in lane 6 or 7, and the kids are the kids are. But those are the kinds of things that one needs to do, and I think it keeps me thinking young, and I think it comes down to being able to relate, and not being, for those of you who are not that much older than the kids, it becomes it comes a little easier. Uh, but I try to stay current with what's going on so you can relate. Once I stop, I'll retire.
Yeah, no, that's what I do. I mean, I'm working with high school kids now, and like you say, between that, keeping relevant, and they help me with my phone all the time, so that part helps. But other than not listening to their music, it drives me a little crazy. But just keeping that youth and enthusiasm, and like you say, learning the trend of the moment, which is 6'7" is pretty crazy. But way what helped me was watching other people recruit or listening to other people recruit. And again, that wasn't always a positive situation. So I learned how not to recruit in some ways also, just by seeing, kind of the dirty under what do you call it, negative recruiting that was going on a lot, and and trying not to get into that mode. But again, like you mentioned with this program where you can basically buy an athlete now, that's a rough one. I mean, that one we did talk about last week's show, which again, I will get it up on the YouTube channel here. It's not up there right yet, but it's just very rough when you have those kind of situations. And so it's like, what are you going to make out of it? Either are you going to use that as an excuse, or like you say, like Vin says, are you going to then, how can I get around that, knowing that some schools have the resources and they want that quick fix? And that's what it's going to be. I mean, when some of these young athletes have been at 4 different schools in 4 different years, what is that? I mean, that is many different situations, I think, with some of this. But you've said about where does loyalty fit in when you're looking for an individual, and how do you tell?
Yeah, I mean, loyalty is a prerequisite, and I think it's my number one. It's the number one criterion you're trying to determine. And loyalty, I think there's a difference between loyalty and just inability for the assistant coach to be able to be objective and be able to be critical about what either a decision or what the reason is for the decision. For me, I find it very, very important to be able to hear a different perspective. But in the end of the day, when the room opens up and you need to go out and face the public, it needs there can't be differences of opinions. But to me, I wouldn't need any assistance doing anything if they were just going to agree with me. I want them to question, challenge, but in the end of the day, we have to all go in the same, we have to be going in the same direction. So loyalty is a primary concern. And how do you measure it? I mean, I would hit it, if those of you who are interested in the interview process, I'd hit it straight out. And I wouldn't beat around the bush in terms of your loyalty. But if you're not going to be, if you just want to be if you want to be someone who is just going to be someone who disagrees for the sake of disagreeing, that's not what I'm talking about when we talk about questioning. You can't be a contrarian. You have to have a reason for why you don't think something and have factual information to back up your position. Any good head coach is looking for assistants who can challenge the norm and be able to justify and rationalize when you have everybody going the same direction, not just because somebody says to do it, but because you actually believe in it and you're listening. Listening skills are vitally important in the hiring of assistant coaches, whether you're interacting with the athletes. And I think there's a difference. I mean, you hit a topic when you're interviewing for jobs. A lot of it, what I see as the failed coaching staffs are the ones where there's an empire building. And it's interesting that Brooks started this, because that was the stuff that Brooks talked to me about when I first came into it. I mean, Brooks, as contrarian as Brooks was, if you could present a clear contrary position to Brooks and you could back it up, nobody was better at being able to adapt that and admitting that, hey, maybe this is a better way to do it than Brooks Johnson. So, and I learned a lot of that from Brooks. So, glad to give him a shout out today.
Yeah, yeah. He's up there smiling, I'm sure. What do you do if you are an assistant coach and you don't agree with the head coach about a situation? How should you handle that so that you're being loyal, but you're still concerned about a situation?
I mean, all I can speak to, obviously, as a head coach, and I don't think I'd be a good assistant coach. But as a head coach, I value the feedback and input and a different point of view. But in the end of the day, the organization has to move forward. And for me, you've got to be able to you've got to be able to get along with the staff. And what is the biggest problem is when the assistant coach comes down and says, well, I don't agree with this, but the head coach says we should do this. That's usually when we have a parting of ways. And that's maybe the worst thing that an assistant coach can do. Is you got to own it, and you can certainly express behind closed doors what your concern is and why. And if the decision is still not what you think it should be, then it's probably the time for you to look for a new job.
Okay. Veronica, what's your question?
Yes, hi. Also, I'm at Denison, so same conference as Overland when you were there, so small world. But anyways, my question is, how do you incorporate speed training year round, including in the summer? I know with your patterns, you do it on the same day every week, preceding a workout, the day after a workout, how that all shakes out essentially.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really depends upon uh, what you're trying to accomplish during the year. For me, when the athletes arrive at at the institution, they have already done all the drills and they have done all of the routine that they're supposed to be doing. They've started it in the summertime. What we do is this. I tend to go on a Monday and Wednesday for everything that's athletic driven. So uh, at Virginia, we do our workouts on Tuesdays and Fridays. This has been after the distance run. So we do Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday. It's a skills and drills day. So we do probably 30 minutes of drills, hurdle mobility, speed ladders, wickets, and then we go into the weight room right after that, usually 45 minutes. But they tend to do their run earlier in the day. So they would do, whatever the training run is, whether it's 4 miles or 8 miles or 10 miles, and then come back in the afternoon with a short warm up and then go through that routine. And we do it all summer. Uh, all we change from the summer to when we arrive is the actual speed that we're doing them. So we're still doing the drills. They may not be doing their hundreds, or we tend to be at 50s. We may not be doing them at the same speed as we're doing at this time of the year. But by the time they get to this time of the year, and people say, well, we're going to cut back on the speed that we do, there's no reason. If you've done them all year, there's no reason to cut back because their muscle memory is set and their patterns of training are established, and they shouldn't need to change around what they're doing. That answer your question, Veronica?
Yes, definitely. And I'm curious, I know you say you do 50s. I'm curious, you do the wickets and then have them do flat 50s to reinforce that stride pattern? And if so, how many 50s?
Well, what we do is we tend to do 5 times 50 meters. We do 4 times wickets that are at about 80 meters. And then we cut it down to 50 meters and they're flat running with spikes.
Yep.
And we tend to run, I mean, people will kind of cringe on this, but we do them at 100%. By this time of the year, they're running at 100%. And even though that may be different for the distance runners as it would be for a 400-meter runner, you got to be specific as to what event they're trying to actually compete in.
Definitely. And is that the same for the student athletes, the same speed day patterns in the outdoor and indoor seasons as well, even if they're doing the 10K versus the 800?
Yes, what I might do with a 10K or 5K person, that's part of their warm up. And we tend to do that. We might move it to a workout day because you're running out of days.
Yeah.
So Monday and Wednesday may not work. And of course, we wouldn't be able to train Tuesday and Friday if they're racing on Saturday.
Yeah.
So just depends on the racing days. But we get it in 2 days a week, every week, 352 weeks a year.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. In the chat, we have Frankie's got a little different perspective here, and I would like him to share and see what your answer is for him. So, Frankie, you want to unmute?
Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Beautiful. So I'm looking at so I've been in coaching collegiately for 10 years now. I was a grad assistant for 2 years at a four-year university. I've been currently coaching junior college for the last going on 8 years, so 10 years total college experience. And I'm looking to potentially move up in the ranks towards Division I or any related field. I'm trying to navigate or figure out what's the best way to get to that direction. So I have my USATF level 2 specialization that throws, USA weightlifting level 2. I have a master's in exercise science. You talked about recruiting. I've had, I would say, over 20 throwers each year that I've been here at the junior college level. At the grad assistant level, I had gone to nationals and I had an All-American. I've had multiple state champions. I've knocked down every school record that the junior colleges had to offer. And my social media buildup for my throws profile is the biggest at any junior college in the nation, even though it's an event specific. I've created a YouTube to signify like technical deficiencies in my throwers and something that you can always kind of look back. Built up my own personal social media as well. Dove into even creating like psychological things that my athletes can kind of look at as kind of like personal development, like how to handle their feelings and stuff like that. And I'm kind of at a loss of like what direction I should really go towards. I've put in several applications through the years to like try to go up to the, for example, like Division 1, and for some reason they always kind of get shut down. And I'm wondering why potentially I'm like losing out to other people that are just 1 year, 2 years in the NCAA system. Even like private coaching, I've done private coaching. I've done the private coaching sector as well, and I've coached higher caliber athletes as well. So I'm just kind of like wondering what I should do to distinguish myself, or to maybe further education, or to even bite the bullet and do like a volunteer work for a year, a semester to try and get experience. And that's kind of where I'm at right now at the crossroad where I'm like, if I don't do something now, as I'm age 33, so I've been coaching decently like a quarter of my life or a third of my life. So I'm like, I should try to, move up in the ranks a little bit. So just kind of wondering like what's your advice for moving up or distinguishing myself with anything that I may be able to do, education or anything else extra.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're doing all of the things that would make you an attractive candidate. I don't know what your connections are, but typically, what I think when I'm hiring somebody, it's typically not off a resume. It's typically someone who knows somebody else who says that, hey, you should talk to this person because this person is really good. And they tend to tell you about social media and the all of the other things that you're doing to be able to prepare yourself to coach at a maybe not even a higher level, but maybe a different division. So my recommendation is the connections that you make are really important, and the networking that you do. It's all about any other job, you're networking. It's not really your resume that people tend to look at. And I think for an event specific coach, like a throws coach or a jumps coach, right now, that is a very tough area to break into because what's happening in the Division 1 level anyway is a lot of the programs are eliminating that particular event area. We run a well-rounded, well-balanced, broad-based program, but a lot of programs in the NCAA are moving out of that. So I think what's important is, do you connect with the different throws coaches who are Division 1 coaches? Are you connected with them?
Yes, my current main mentor is Mohammed Tatara. He's coaching currently at University of Texas.
Sure.
So I have a pretty good connection with a pretty good amount of coaches, at least on the West Coast. And my main mentor being Mohammed Tatara. He's kind of, try to help me, and I have him as a reference as well. And just try to learn anything I can with anybody that kind of crosses my path as well, to try and honestly just kind of, develop myself as a coach and as a person, but just continue to kind of chip away. But I think myself as being at the junior college level, one, for example, like we don't make a huge wage, so we're able to kind of travel to like convention even, which I know is a huge, like melting pot of people to talk to. And we don't, at the junior college level, we don't have, at least in the California, we don't have any kind of incentives. We don't have sponsorships to go to like convention or anything, even certifications. Everything's come out of pocket. So the way I've done it in the past is reached out to coaches via social media, and I've made some connections that way with positions that I would potentially like to be in. And just kind of asking what their path was, and they said something very similar with connections. So I guess the next question would be, if the connections are done through maybe like the throws coaches, other throws coaches or head coaches. How do I grow that pool of connections to be able to land that job?
See, I don't know. Vin, I think you might have frozen. Well, let's see if he comes back. I think the biggest thing, Frankie, is again the connection part, like the coaches convention this week is in or this year's in Dallas. If you can get to Dallas at all. Um, it's a matter, I think the social media is a good way of doing it and venture out a little bit more to other, a Don Babbitt or oh, who else? Or, some of the other top uh the guy at Nebraska or, some of the other Missouri, that guy. As to getting a little more credibility with these coaches who can toss your name out. Because if Vin says that they don't really go off your resume, which sounds quite depth. But if they aren't looking at that, then it goes back to who you know. So that I think is going to be a big pivot for you. So maybe if that helps at all, we'll see. Or you can, keep us posted on that, or I mean, I can look through some of the coaches and give you some ideas also of people to reach out to. So hopefully now Vin has said he's got technical difficulties, stand by. So we'll stand by here and he will be back. It's like a commercial, I guess. Jenna, do you have a question that we can answer or do we need to wait for Vin?
Possibly, if another coach can kind of answer it. My question was more so geared at like he's doing what sounds like really high CNS stuff on Monday, Wednesdays when he's doing all of these wickets and these sprints and the weight training. And I was curious how, because I kind of coach and operate off of the philosophy that our hard days are hard and our easy days are easy. So we are weightlifting on the days that we are doing workouts. And so in theory, if they're going Monday, high neural day. Tuesday is like a distance workout, whether it's threshold work, VO2 work, what have you. Wednesday is high neural again. Thursday is potentially recovery because it doesn't sound like there's something. And then Friday is a workout. Kind of where is that recovery coming in? Is he seeing a positive or a negative impact when he's trying to do VO2 work, either in between two really high CNS days, just trying to figure out how that's kind of managed if he's working within a 24-hour window and that's why you're getting that adaptation in the
Okay, well,
appropriate response.
let's see if he can get back on because it
I
sounds
don't know if any other coach can
specific.
answer it. I would love to hear like someone else's input or
I think
kind of
like you
anything.
say is the giving your body enough time to rest. I mean, that's the key part in
Yeah.
there, is that especially with the high neuro days that you give time, and it might be where you do a high neuro on Monday and then Thursday or something like that to give the break. Bob Larson, did you hear her question?
Yes.
Could you help
I
us
don't
out?
understand all of it, but my way of doing things were a little bit different in that I relied heavily on threshold training. In fact, we did double days, which became very popular with the Norwegian skiers, and then eventually now Ingebrigtsen is doing double threshold days, and the guys up in northern Arizona. Well, a lot of people are trying to copy that. We found that to be extremely successful. And not that I don't believe in balance training, which I really do, but threshold training, you can get your threshold up easier than any other thing, much easier than trying to elevate VO2 max. So, heavy doses of threshold training doesn't have to be twice a day, but uh, quite a bit of that type of training, and then kicking in with your higher intensity stuff as the season progresses allows you usually to hit your best marks at the end of the year. But to be more
Yeah.
specific from what you were saying, I think sometimes what I always like is flexibility because your athletes are different. They're not all the same. So when you see a group of athletes running down the street, I always think if they're all together, somebody's running the wrong pace.
Yeah.
So I individualize everything. And to your point, uh, I would say for women, what he outlined there, because you're really aware of recovery. For women, I think it's even more important than a lot of men. That uh, what he is suggesting that the at least 4 days a week are really defined and very much controlled. So uh, I think that's a general overall method I think would work with a lot of athletes. But if you have some superstars, I think they can go more frequently. A lot of
Okay.
times they can go double days of pretty
Yeah.
hard training, or every 30 hours they can go, or like we did quite frequently, which was double days of threshold.
Okay.
I don't know if this is going to help you because it throws another idea into the mix here, but uh, I think that's where good coaching comes in, is to individualize and be flexible enough. If you see something with a certain individual or some individuals that that you're not committed to just doing it one way.
Oh yeah,
That the
definitely.
exceptional people, whether they maybe take longer to get to there or they're they have a bigger talent, that you have room for both of them.
Okay.
I often point out that there would be no Jerry Lindgren with a whole lot of coaches. I don't know if you know who Jerry Lindgren was, but he'd get up in the middle of the night and run across town at threshold pace really fast. He was running over 100 miles a week when he was in high school. He broke all the records. He ran we run 840 indoors with no interval training. You know, how many of us would screw up a Jerry Lindgren? Or how many of us would screw up a guy who uh, can run really fast on 40 miles a week? If you heard, if you're paying attention to what Vin was telling you, is he has guys, as I did, who would on the same team would be running less than 50 miles a week, and other guys that would be running 100 or maybe even more.
Yeah.
And to have a program that will allow for both of those, to me, was always important. That it's not just your program is a low mileage or your program is a high mileage or whatever. Now, we didn't do intervals in between seasons. We experimented with national champions and did it both ways with different groups of athletes. And for us, yes, you can do some threshold during off seasons, but that's the time to build up your mileage.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to disagree with Vin. He and I were roommates at in Athens Olympic Games, as coaches, and so I agree. He came up with a lot of really good ideas here, and I think this is all really valuable. And so I'm being a little picky, but I'm trying to address what you're looking at
Yeah.
and just giving a general idea that um, don't pigeonhole yourself
No, for
or
sure. Yeah.
follow anybody other coach exactly, because it's got to be you, your personality, what you see out there,
Yeah.
and making those adjustments on the fly.
Yeah.
Now, it is Bill Bowerman's old hard day, easy day still a reliable way to go? Yes, and that's what Vin is doing there, isn't he? Hard day, easy day, hard day, easy day. But he defines it as, well, weightlifting and all those drills. By the way, I really believe in drills. Beb Keflezighi
Yeah.
probably did more drills than any other athlete, whether even a hurdler or a sprinter. We spent a lot of time on drills so he wouldn't break down in big races, and with other athletes too. So I agree with him completely on that. In doing the wickets and speed training and 30 minutes a day on that, I applaud him for all that stuff. So you couldn't go wrong doing exactly what Vin has been doing. I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting you couldn't, and I'm going on here a little bit too long, but Vin isn't back on yet, so I'm taking
Actually, he
advantage of
is.
that time. But hopefully that helps a little bit.
It does, yeah.
Great.
I
Well,
have another question here, Sue.
yes.
I applaud you for doing this. I thank you very, very much. It's very valuable stuff. Everyone I've ever turned on to these things is, and I'm 104 years old, so I don't know why I'm doing it, but it's kind of fun to watch these things and getting updated. But where's the cap? You know, when uh, uh, Brooks Johnson, his last few years, always had a really big
Oh, you want me to get a hat?
cap on. We need a cap for you. Could
Okay,
we get your size and we'll send you something?
I will work on that. I will work. I got the opening ceremonies cap from Athens. Maybe I'll work on that one.
Oh yeah, the what do they call that? It's kind of
Was it
like
like a beret or
a
something?
French, yeah, French
Yeah,
cap.
I'll
I
work
want
on
to,
that next week.
yeah, I
Okay.
want to just make a comment too till Vin gets back. By
Actually,
the way,
he's
I see
back.
Norm taped there. Norm, you must be as old as I am.
I think you
Hey,
guys are pushing it
good
there.
seeing you. But another, yeah, one thing that kind of stood out, we were talking to the junior college coach. Um, I think that a good point was made. Sue, you and Vin both made that same point, I think, is you you do have to network. But I think the other thing he mentioned was he asked if he should volunteer somewhere. I would suggest you do that. If you can afford to do that, and you've got the skill and you've got the art of coaching and you can display that quickly, that's the best way possible that you do it with athletes with some respected coach. If you do that, you're there.
That's
And
very good. Yeah.
yeah, I think that would be an excellent way to to break in if you. And the other thing is, I coached a community college for years. We could beat all the open school, well, the even Division I schools in cross country and a lot of times in track. So don't say you want to move up. Community college and high school too are pretty doggone good. If you do a good job, don't be quick to leave that or say that you're trying to move to a level that, in my mind, is no better than those two levels.
That's a
Um,
very good point, especially with all these new rules and regulations. And like Vin was saying, some of these programs dropping the field events, which is a whole nother topic. But like you were saying, Division II is not a step down. Division III, Norm is in Division III. It's not a step down. I've got a young man that's probably going to be going Division III, and we were talking about that today, that it's what you make out of it. And you get the education and get the opportunity to be the very best you could be. So that's it. Vin is back on now, so that's good. And Francis, you had your hand up.
Oh, I was gonna share what my notes with what Jana was saying because the I wrote it down with the wickets that wasn't like the only thing that day either too.
Yeah.
Because
So so I
good.
operate off of a system that like I have a very similar belief to Vin that I believe everything is present always or everything needs to be present always. I used to be when I was very early in my career, like we were not sprinting over the summer, we were not sprinting during cross country season, and as soon as we reintroduced it during track, everybody's injuries flared up, things flared up. So then I shifted to where everything is present always. All of my students are on a really individualized plan. Then you pointed out that you have kind of the four main components that you like to hit. And so I was curious how you kind of manage. It sounds like your Monday and Wednesdays are very high central nervous system, very high neural days. And do you see that? Have you ever tried to follow them with the VO2 day? Because you said that your workouts were Tuesday, Friday. Do you see any sort of like they're not getting enough recovery or anything to that? Or how did you I mean, obviously your summer you would spend getting them used to that. Um, but yeah, does my question make sense? It probably
Yeah, I
doesn't.
mean, yeah, no, it does. It makes absolute sense. I think that what I try to do, I think that I subscribe to doing it during the summertime and
Yeah.
preparation. Then it becomes part of muscle memory. And during the summertime, the second day, so if they're doing their all their drills and their speed work, etc., where they're tapping into the central nervous system, uh, the next day, typically in the summer, even though it's kind of a threshold day, that
Uh-huh.
on Tuesday, it's typically not a speed endurance day. It's typically a threshold day, and I find that the kids do recover from that. Um,
Okay.
so, and I want to kick back. Uh, Bob was talking. I didn't know UCLA was a junior college.
Hey, I've got a comment too on scholarships, Vin. You didn't add this, but when you were in Dartmouth, you were top three in the NC2A cross about two, three times, and you had no scholarships. So when you're talking nils or no nils, you could do it with no nils. I was at Grossmont Community College, which I mentioned, no scholarships. You can't recruit out of 8 schools, and we were as good as practically any team in the country, and they turned down scholarships. If you have a winning program, I think you can still do that, and you have a winning program, and you make guys better. And when you make guys better, they want to be part of it. So, I think that's a big part of all of this, that we shouldn't be that concerned that nils are going to take over. And another uh, topic you mentioned was foreign athletes overwhelming the system. We had to go against UTEP. We had to go against Washington State. Well, they had 25-year-old freshmen, and they were probably early 30s by the time they graduated. They were world class when they came to those schools, and we could run with them. Our top guys ran right with them. We'd go 4 for 4 with UTEP at the NC2As, but and we won the conference pretty easily. But uh, if you have too many of them, then your guys get discouraged, I think. So we have to be, if we can, I agree with you, the competition is good. A lot of them, let's say, I don't know what the number would be, but when you have too many schools resorting to that, I think it's going to be a problem. If you have some, if it's where it is right now, it might be okay. Let's see what happens at the NC2As. But Vin, you got to be in the top three at the NC2As like you did at Dartmouth. Uh, show hope to kids that are teenagers that they can run at that level too. And that's why we put together the Mammoth Track Club several years ago when I retired from UCLA, that Americans can run with anybody, but you can't necessarily put an 18-year-old against a 25-year-old and expect success.
Right. Well, just a bit of his statistics in the 2023 track and field nationals NC2A, the medalists were over 52% foreign. So, again, numbers. Veronica, you're going to finish us off here. So you've got your hand up. What's
Yeah.
your question?
Yes, I'm wondering for Vin and then Bob as well. During the cross country season, how much work do you do at race, pace, or effort and faster for both the men and women? And if so, do you have a max of how long you feel each individual rep should be at race effort for both men and women, assuming, 6K versus 8K/10K?
Yeah,
Let me let
go ahead, Bob. Why don't
Vin,
you?
I want Vin to answer that. But Vin, I wanted to just say, because when you were off, I was talking about our differences in the program a little bit. We were more like you than maybe I led people to believe, because we really go heavy on threshold and, even double day thresholds. But off season, we didn't do intervals, but we did do strides and stuff like that. And so I wanted to clarify that. Also, um, one thing that you did, and I mentioned again when you were off camper, I love the fact that you have low mileage people and high mileage people on the same teams, and we did that same thing, and I really respect that.
Well, thanks, Bob. Veronica, for what we do is, I don't know that I could quantify the actual amount of time that we do. I mean, I would say that, well, let me say at first, we do basically the same principle of workouts with the men and the women. There's really no difference. The only thing that's difference might be the total of volume, just because the women are running 6K and the men are running 8K or 10K. So typically, I would, if I were going to take a crack at that question, I would say that on the high end, the men might do uh, threshold work or even speed and endurance work that would add up to about 45 minutes in a session, whereas the women would be running something like 30 minutes in a session. That's my, to nail down a particular number would be hard. It depends, what the purpose is of the workout. But at race pace, we do, I bet we do 75% of the work that we do in interval training is at race pace or faster than race pace. That's a general comment.
Does that answer your question there, Veronica?
Yes.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent. Well, Vin and Bob and everybody else, thank you so much for giving up your time and your evening. And hopefully you got a lot of good information, whether it be on distance running and training or just recruiting and team culture and developing a program. So again, thank you so much. And Vin, thank you for making the schedule change because I know you jumped through several hoops to make this happen. So I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome, Sue. Thanks everybody for your question, your attention to all this. And Sue, Brooks would be proud of you.
I try to make him proud. I talk to him a lot, and he says it's okay, but I do have to get a hat for Bob, so I'll work on that one. But
Congratulations on your conference championship, Ben.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
good luck with regionals and everybody. Good luck this week if you have conference meets, and we'll see you next week. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody.
Thanks. Thanks.